You guys keep an eye on that. Josh, let the audience keep an eye on that. Check it out, guys. I've got this radiator in here, and that's right about where we need to mount it. I took some of this foam core board. You can get that at the Dollar Tree for $1.25 actually now, not $1 anymore. But I covered the radiator because by the time we're done with this, it's going to come in and out maybe 20 times, and you don't want to get all of those fins all messed up. So take your time and cover that up. That way you don't mess your radiator up. I promise you there is a radiator inside here somewhere. So the next thing that we're going to do, I found some little rubber grommets. I've ordered some more. I've got some more on order. You just go on Amazon or Ace Hardware, buy some rubber grommets. And so we're going to make a little triangular shape of steel right here and have a bolt welded to the backside. So that's just going to slip on forward like that. On the bottom here, this particular radiator has these pins. So we're going to do the same thing. Basically a grommet with a hole and a piece of metal. That grommet's going to sit in it, and this will drop right down in and hold itself up, and then it'll get bolted here. So it'll be held this direction and this direction. We might be able to reuse the fan shroud from the Dodge. It's a little bit wider, so if we reuse this, it'll need some modification. If not, we may just make our own out of some thin gauge steel, and that way all of the air volume will be sucked through the entire radiator and not just part of it, so that's pretty important. I think that's it. We're going to go ahead and get started on cutting some steel and start welding this up. I guess one thing that you could get wrong here is you want to make sure that it's either supported by the frame or by the body, but not both. So in this case, I think we're going to go off of the body, and we'll be able to go right over the frame here. The reason being, the frame is going to move separately than the body, and if you mounted one to the frame, one to the body, it would tear the radiator in half because they're going to move separately. And having said that, the body itself is not mounted on the front end. It's still kind of fluid and moving. So I want to get this level with the frame, because that's where we're going to mount the body. It's all like you got to do one thing before the next, and sometimes we do things that should be towards the end at the beginning or out of order. So yeah, let's see if we're at a good spot. That's 5 inches. That's 5 1/4 inches. I don't know if you can see that, but this side has to come up a little. I'm glad I remembered that, otherwise things would be really strange. Alright, right about there. So I'll just leave that there while we're working. I think what we need here is like a little trapezoid, so maybe about 3 3 3/4 inches trapezoid. It'll be bigger on this side, like a triangle, and then come down to here, and then we'll have a bolt through the back side right there. On this side, it's a little shorter, maybe a 2.5 inch trapezoid. I'm gonna make some trapezoids here. Josh, would you mind cutting these out for me?
Sure.
So it's basically the way it kind of look like. That one, and then 2.5 inches, 2.5, look like that. There we go. I'll wait to put that hole in it until we get the actual one so it's not off, but it does have an adjustment there. I think 1/8 inch will be fine. 1/8, yeah. Alright, so can be straight edges there, but then kind of round, just kind of slightly rounded on these corners.
Okay.
And then we'll cut the holes afterwards. Alright Josh, I've got these marked like this, so I just need a hole right there with a bolt welded to it from this side. That's probably about 1.5 inches long, maybe 2 inches. What do you think? Maybe 5/16 or something?
Do a bolt or a nut?
I would say a bolt would help us slide it on. I don't know, could be either. I'd say bolt.
Say bolt.
I'd say bolt in the head. I marked it. Head this side.
Okay.
So I'm just taking these, hold them into place as well. Need to mark that. Right about there. And right about there. These ones on the bottom with that post is going to have a bigger hole, and then the grommet's going to sit down on that, and then the post will fit down inside there. Let's do a 3/4 inch hole for those. Okay. We have a slight problem in that little piece is keeping it from going on there, but I would say if we notch this out in the shape of that, I would think that it would work. Because we need to be able to slide it forward. Judging by the look of it, if we just did like something like that, maybe. Alright, you think that'll do it? Oh yeah, that'll do it. Okay. One more to go. Alright, now we have a mounted radiator behind the board. I promise you, it is in there. Alright, look at that. Take our little shims off. There and there. Put that back, make sure it clearances. Oh yeah. We'll put a little rubber gasket or foam up in there to keep the air flowing in the correct direction. Oh yeah, that's sweet. Can still get the radiator cap on there. The only problem we're gonna have, I've ordered some hoses, 180 and 90, but we're gonna have to come from here over to there, and it's gonna be pretty tight. So we're thinking a 90 here and then a 180, and then it'll reach right. You can't even see it because it's under this frame rail, but it's gonna have to go from there to there. I think the top will be pretty straightforward because it's 1.75 inches from here to here, although that's at slightly the wrong angle. But I've got some hoses coming that should be able to come like this and kind of sneak down and up into here. Alright, next up, there is no body mount for the front end of the car. So without this jack, this side of the car is kind of sagging a little bit. So we leveled up the front of the body with the bumper here, and we're going to put body mounts on the front, pin that into place so that all that stuff stays still. Right now, if I let this jack down, the radiator kind of goes, so we need to get that fixed. What's your solution, Joshua?
So this is gonna go in there. We need to drill a hole in the frame in the right spot, that size. This sits in there. It's the correct space in between the car and the frame. This bolt goes through the factory body mount. This sandwiches in between, and that's the mount.
Sounds good. Do we need this steel? Are we using the steel part of the bushing?
We're using the steel part too.
Okay.
It fits.
Sweet. That'll be perfect. That is the most massive bolt I have ever seen for a body mount.
You gotta find the other one.
But to do that, we've got to drill a hole in the frame, and to do that, we've got to lift the car off again. So we're going to move it back over here, start the removing process. Is that a word? Is that a phrase?
Sure. It is now.
That's what we're going to do, the removing process.
The steering's connected.
Oh, crap. Did we crack it?
No, I think it's good.
Forgot about that. I even told you guys about that. How come you didn't say anything? Now we gotta make sure we didn't goof up and that will slide out of there as the body's coming up. Otherwise we'll have to make some modifications again. Alright, you guys keep an eye on that. Josh, let the audience keep an eye on that.
Alright, you guys watch that. I'll watch the other stuff.
You guys had a nasty fall, are you alright? Look at that. That's the first time I've seen it with the bed but no body on it. It looks like it's only the last couple feet, which it is. It looks tiny. Alright, so I think we're ready to weld up, finalize these brackets, right?
Yeah.
So we can do that. We need to make some cross members, a belly skid. Need to tighten up that cross member so it's not so low. But I think we should do that before we pull the transfer case and transmission and stuff. Alright guys, we've been contemplating our navels for how we're going to do a skid plate for this thing. It is a monstrosity of a skid plate. But we're going to use this factory cross member right about here where it is actually. Of course it's going to be down there, but what we need to do is make some modifications to it. So we're gonna notch this section out here, just like so. And then we're going to have to clearance here because this part is going to sit here, but the car hits it. And we were looking at this, man, what was that, 2 months ago?
Yeah, it was a while ago.
We're just now getting around to it. This has been a heck of a build. I think we got in over our heads of what we expected here. Not that we can't do it, but we have a limited amount of time. So we're gonna have to cut that off and then probably take some 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch at least and replate it. And then let's show them where it's gonna go, kind of. Imagine if that was straight across, it's gonna go right here. And then let me bring you down here. So that is at the perfect height for a 1/4 inch plate of steel to sit right on it. It's going to clearance right underneath the transfer case there. And then up front, right about here where the double cardan drive shaft sits. So right in front of this cross member. This is not a cross member, but this holds the transmission up. But right in front of that, we're going to have another cross member. We're going to have to figure out how to take that off without welding it, because if we weld it, we would never be able to get the transmission out of the bottom. So we're going to have to figure out how that's going to come off or unbolt. So I think our thoughts for that is to put a plate here on the outside, and then we'll bolt to that. can't bolt to this inside piece because then it would just get trapped. So that's our goal. We're kind of all over the place today, but we're planning on taking the transfer case out to make some twin stick modifications to it, but we need to get this figured out before we take it out, because otherwise we don't know at what height it sits and whether things are going to clearance or not. While Josh is in there working on that, we're going to make another one of these basically, but without a bushing. So, man, he's really loud in there. Let's see what you got here. There it goes. There it goes.
So if we wanted to make this removable easily, like slide back and drop it down, the back of this would need to be probably 2 or 3 inches back behind the yoke, and it can't be.
Okay. What if we made it behind this so that we could just take the yoke off if we had to?
You're still going to be putting it.
Well, the drive shaft's not going to drop down that far, that quickly. There's no way.
Right.
So I think we can move it back quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, we can put it back there. I just didn't know if you wanted it clear back there.
Well,
That's that much more skid plate we have to build.
but it's that much more skid plate that we have.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, if the skid plate sticks out further, it'll keep us on top. Ah, man. There you are. Your guys' batteries ran out. Alright, so what I was saying is, I think if we move it back further, where it won't touch the drive shaft, it'll be better. We'll have to build more skid plate, but it'll keep us on top of the rock longer, because once we drop off of that rock, if we have to back up, then it's going to get caught.
Right.
So if we're still on that rock and we have to back up, it'll still slide.
So you're thinking there.
Yeah, let's do it right there. So we just need to get rid of paint. We can weld that in, I think. Although, if we need to do any sort of captured nuts here, we should probably think about that before we weld it in. So we're going to think about that. All right, Josh, contemplate this with me.
Okay.
So, good morning. It's the next day. Josh is absent today, so it's a lot quieter. What I was saying was, we're going to basically make this transmission crossmember all over again, except without the bushing in it. So what we've got here is this plate. We're going to weld that to the frame, and then this is going to get bolted. And then to that, we're going to weld a tube across. Of course, it's going to have to bend underneath the transmission. And it's not going to get mounted to anything. This is just going to be to hold the frame rails from separating, make everything stiff. So first up, I just need to mark these holes for the tube clamp here. Close enough. Then we're going to drill. We need to be able to get this bolt through all 4 of those holes. Okay, there's what we came up with. It's going to sit just like this, and then there's going to be a tube between. But since that's on the frame rail, we won't be able to get to the back side to hold these nuts. So what we're going to do is capture these nuts. So basically, we're just going to weld these here, and that way they'll be permanently behind there. You won't need to get a wrench on them. You'll just be able to thread this side in, not have to worry about the back side. Alright guys, you see that cross member right there? I basically need to make that same cross member over here. You need to come off right off of there. So it needs to be shaped about like that. So we're going to make this one with tube. And I can probably use some scraps if I've got the right angles, but it basically needs to be just below this guy right here, because this needs to move independently with the transmission on it. And so this tube needs to sit here, and then we're going to mount the skid plate from this one all the way back to this guy back here. Alright, it may be hard to believe, but this is actually a complex bend because we're trying to hit a certain height from the bottom, and then we need to hit a certain point so that it'll be right in the center of those things with the 4 bolts in them, the plates. So what I've done is I've drawn it out on the table, the shape that I need, and this is a template. So I've bent this previously at 45 degrees, and you can see right where the start of the bend is, right there. So we're going to put this up against the bottom. This will be right over the top of that line, and then we're going to mark that as the start of the bend. Now if I take my tube and I mark the center of it, this 21, match that with the center of my drawing here, and then we're going to start that bend right there. And then we're going to bend on this side of the bend at 45 degrees. Alright, let's see how we did on our template. So this goes up to that line, and then that should be there. Looks pretty good. Now we need to cut along this line at a 45 degrees, and that should be exactly 32.5 from here to here. So I'm just going to mark that looking up from the top right there. Then we'll see if we can get that in the saw. Because of that bend right here, I can't get it clamped in the saw correctly, but let's give that a shot right there. I think that'll be close. And we'll try the same thing over here. Exactly 32.5 inches from the other side. Alright, I just cut the other side. Let's see how we did here. Oh yeah, look at that. Really nice. Right on the line there, and on the other side as well. Now, just hope I measured correctly. Alright, goes right in there. It's about a 1/4 inch wide, which is good though. At least it's not too short. I can trim it down a little bit to fit. Gonna be great. Alright, I trimmed it just a tad. Let's see. Might need to trim it a little more. So close. How much room do I have over there, guys? Got it. There we go. That's a lot of work for just one little cross member. So I just need to get that straight. I'll tack it in, make some little tabs, and then that'll be the bottom of our skid plate up to this point. And then we've got to figure out what we're going to do from there forward. Let's see how we did on our height from underneath. If you remember, it needs to be level with that, but below that, which is really good, needs to be below the transfer case, which we do clear there. So that's good. I think that's going to be perfect. What we'll probably end up doing is having a flat skid down here and then kind of an angle up to the frame rail here. That way you won't be able to see all of this stuff whenever you're standing far back from the vehicle. And it also has to clear the drive shaft, which I think it'll do just fine there. We've got probably 2 inches maybe there, and that drive shaft is going to tilt down whenever the axle flexes out, but it's way up here at the pivot point, so I don't think it's going to move all that far. Alright, so what I was making there is some captured nut tabs to hold the skid plate, and I'll show you how that's going to work. Typically I would drill a hole into the frame, but in this case I can't, so I'm going to use these instead. So the flat skid plate is going to get mounted right along here along the frame rail. It's going to do about a 45 and then flatten out along the bottom of the mounts here. These are going to get welded right about here, and that will be where I can bolt the skid plate to. Like I said, we would typically do that in the frame rail, but you can see there's interference there, but this will be alright. I'll mount these right here. I'll put 3 on each side, so one here, one about here, and then one up front there, and then that thing will get mounted and bolted just like that. The reason I put the bolts on the upper portion is because it won't be able to slide on bolt heads very well, but there won't be any bolt heads on the bottom part. This will be up higher and out of the way. So that's going to be great. That's just like I did on the Scorpion, just like we did on the Comanche and Josh's Jeep as well. Alright, I'm going to take a magnet. We'll put it just like that. Put it here where I need it, and I'll give it a little bit of space. Then we'll tack it. Alright, I'll weld those up tomorrow. It's getting pretty late today, but that's going to be the base for our skid plate. And then let me show you what else I did. I started on these guys, and these guys are going to be going in like so. I need to trim them down a bit, but they're going to hold the front of the skid plate way out here in front of the oil pan. Basically doing the same thing as those, but we have to go around the drive shaft and on the other side around the starter, and then we'll weld a nut into here, and then that'll be where the front of the skid plate bolts up. So it'll be large back there, but then it's going to have to get kind of narrow and just protect the oil pan up front here because there's a lot of other stuff going on. But that's what that's for. We'll see you guys in a minute in the morning.